Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities, the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about the trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous. Shut the f***. Like all of these fake actors. Okay. Now, let me not get like mad at the people who's just performing their jobs. It's just these news reporters reporting on the script or whatever they're seeing on the teleprompter. But you see how fake that is, bro? Like, do you see how they're all orchestrated together in a sense where they're saying the same things? You know, it might sound like, oh, well, maybe that's just the common script that news reporters say. But couldn't that also be applied to the information and how it's being produced, where people are giving a lens to the people to look through, right? Like, that's why it's very important to think for yourself, because there's things such as propaganda. And if you don't know what that is, it's a form of communication that deliberately spreads bias or misleading information to influence public opinion or promote a particular agenda.
Active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. This is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization.
Demoralization is the first tactics that these psychoanalysts use to change your mind, change your paradigm, make you feel like you're lesser than, so that you don't trust your own judgment. You don't have the ability to discern from fact and fiction. And what this does to a person over time is make them dependent on the one who is giving them information, so that they don't understand the world through their own lens, through their own mind. They have to go through the system to know themselves. They've built this false identity within a false reality. Within this false reality, they're told that they're not good enough and they will never be good enough. And so they operate from that vibrational state where they can't think beyond what the system tells them to think like. I've experienced this firsthand within my culture, where, you know, I come from Jamaica, West Indies, and we had this self-hatred outlook on our own bodies, where we think that it's dirty to grow our hair out because we have this nappy hair, and we just hate our skin tone, right? They think light skin is more favorable because it's closer to the white man. And I've seen all of this through my own people, that we become crabs in a bucket pulling each other down. You heard what that ex-KGB psychoanalyst said about people when they're demoralized? They reject the truth. They reject the truth even if it's blaring them in the face. They reject the truth until it's too late.
He is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, when a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation.
There's a book that even talks about it or prophesies about it, or I guess it's just the patterns of how humans operate in covert power to just try to gain power over the masses. There's a book that George Orwell made. It's called 1984. That's a classic book that I need to go back and add to my collection, because I read this in high school and I never really thought too much about it. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, you know, sci-fi future. But now I'm like, nah, this could be real. In the book, they convinced the guy that 2 + 2 = 5. Right? 2 + 2 = 5. It's not even about whether it's correct or not. It was just about power, that they can control the perception of people to the point that they would reject what their eyes see, reject what their ears hear, all of what they can perceive for themselves, and listen to someone else tell them what reality is. Now, I've studied these psychological events or phenomenons so that I gain an understanding for myself, that I don't fall into that trap, right? And I come to understand that the reason people fall into that line of thinking where someone is thinking for them is because they have low self-esteem. Most people are undisciplined, and this undisciplined nature leads to incompetency, where you feel like you can't do your life well, right? And you need someone to tell you how to live. This is why self-improvement is the peak of human existence, to improve oneself past their limits, where you have autonomy over your life and you have autonomy over your destiny and where you're going and where you're heading, instead of being a puppet that's being pulled and strung along because you have no direction. You don't have an internal compass for yourself. You're being guided by this world of illusions. The way how you develop a mind of your own is by taking the time to process reality, taking the time to process information.